Hello, Coach Robbie.
Hello, athlete Michael.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good, man. You?
Good. It's a gloomy Sunday afternoon, beautiful fall day, in my opinion.
Yeah, it started out nice and sunny and really gorgeous, and then the wind picked up. It reminds you a lot of like Louisville last Sunday, except the no rain. Started out pretty warm, nice morning, sunshine, all good things to be had, and the next thing you know, it turns cloudy and a little bit cool, and windy.
Wow. No wonder I didn't feel like working out.
Yeah, the post weather traumatic disorder or something like that.
Yeah. It's actually I have kind of felt like working out all day, but I haven't. How's that?
Well, I think that counts.
All right.
Well, I mean, at least you're on your way back in one area.
Yeah. Mentally.
At least it's yeah, exactly, mentally, and then then maybe emotionally, and then maybe physically. If everybody comes back at different speeds. I had an athlete, Joanne actually, who's basically hasn't even skipped a beat. She did a 2.5 hour ride yesterday. uh, you know, which probably doesn't surprise you either, but
No, she's keeping the pressure on.
yeah, she likes to get out. And then I had another one today that she's like, yeah, maybe 2.5. I was like, yeah, why don't you just see what the body tells you? And that was like, I think, a 1 hour spin on the trainer that averaged like 6 watts. So we all come back at different speeds, and listen to your body, listen to your mind, and you'll know when it's time to come back.
Is it just me, or do I feel like a lot of our athletes are coming back pretty quickly? Not just from this race, but from previous races. And I mean, it seems like every time I go in our closed group, Crushing Iron group on Facebook search, I'm seeing a new sign up for a big race next year.
Yeah, everybody seems to be excited, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a complicated answer, but I think a lot of it has to do with not feeling terrible when they finish and get done, and then also I think it also helps to be really, really happy with your result. I think that generally is the happy with the result, loved every moment of it, did a great race, and can't imagine not doing it again, and or doing another one. And so I think that's a reason for a lot of people just like to keep the train moving.
Yeah,
And
they do.
I got no complaints, no squabbles.
Yeah. I noticed you posted that New Orleans got canceled, and the first thing I thought of was the conversation we had about you thinking about doing it, and how that would have as a bounce backy race, and you got to be feeling pretty good about not being
Oh,
in the
yeah, it's
French
we've
Quarter
said
right
it.
now.
Yeah, we've said it many times on this podcast, and as Sarah Frank reminded me this morning, sometimes the best races are the ones you don't do.
Mm.
And yeah, could not be any happier with that decision. Um, Probably one of my more brilliant restraining moments in a sport that can be sometimes impulsive to when it comes to clicking that sign up button and then a register button. And yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, I'd have pulled the trigger. I'd be in the French Quarter. Well, I'd still, back then I'd still probably having a pretty good time.
Yeah.
But definitely,
That would
definitely
have been your
wouldn't have.
number one reason for pulling the trigger back then.
That's right.
Hopefully this thing does get canceled, and we can just kind of do what we really came here for,
Exactly.
which is
Head to the
to
bars and have a good time.
wake up before the sun comes up and get out to get out to the bars.
Get out to the
Quick.
bars and do my thing. Yeah, quickly. Probably in my tri-suit still. But
Well, that's yeah, exactly. I just I was just listening to a podcast with Russell Brand, who has a new book out called Recovery or something. But anyway, they were talking about how this world is perfectly designed today for the addict. I just thought that was maybe a good
oh, it
thing to
is.
throw in there. I mean, everything is so impulse, and there's so many easy ways to kind of like distract yourself from the mission.
Very true.
Um,
Very, very true. Because being distracted is everyone's real addiction.
hmm
Whether it's distracting from life or personal problems or work problems or family problem, you're rarely ever until you get into, the other side of it, are you ever really addicted to the solution? You're more addicted to the distraction.
hmm
And, that's obviously the biggest difference with me versus, uh, about 4 years ago exactly, around this time, I was addicted to to alcohol, but also to, any kind of other distraction, that it might be, whether it was a 10-mile swim race on, 5 days notice, um, or any other thing, and now it's, no, I'm good. I'm working more in the solutions, uh, game, and I'll wait till next year. But yeah, I mean, life in general is, it's about, and it's so much with it, life is just one big distraction and can be. I mean, I think we touched on this, and we won't go too far down this rabbit hole. We'll talk a little triathlon, but you were talking about last, podcast about, everybody. I mean, it wasn't fear, I don't think, but uh, that I feel like, we as a country, at least here in the U.S., move from like one traumatic event to the next,
hmm
and we hang on to it, and we rant and rave about it, and we change our profile pictures to some like flag, and then the next one happens, and we move on to that one. But we never really get into the solutions game. We always are in the fear and the panic and and the response, the reaction. We're just never really part of the actual action. And I think that's a something that we find ourselves in. I think in the sport is, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that, and I was like, yeah, but I mean, I could also just keep doing what I'm doing and just trying to get better and figure out, little things. Because I mean, no matter what race you do, no matter how well you do, if you reach your goal, if you have a PR, if you whatever it is, there's always things that you can improve on, areas you can do. And instead of just kind of, being fine with it, going into the off season, it was, hey, and the reason I chose not to do New Orleans was, I can, I just didn't think it was a smart logistic decision, and my heart really wasn't into it. And it was just like, I'm gonna go into the off season feeling more unsatisfied, and that's a good thing.
hmm
It just leads more towards, wanting to, be satisfied and take action towards that instead of just, uh, you know, drowning in complacency, which is what we do a lot of the times by just, hopping on one distracted bandwagon, for another. And honestly, like, this, you brought up a great point. Like, this is a really tough time of year for a lot of people. Um, and I think the reason why so many people struggle during the off season is because they're the amount of things that can help them become or be distracted are limited, especially with where you live in the country. A lot of people choose, and we talk about this on many podcasts, especially for you and I and a lot of other people. It's like, we choose endurance sports not so much as a distraction, but we have at a time, but once that's taken away, and now we're at this like really weird, uncomfortable off season, quote unquote. It's like, well, now what are we going to do with ourselves? What's going to get us out of bed?
hmm
What's going to keep us motivated? What's going to keep us excited? What's going to keep us positive instead of like going down that proverbial, yeah, I mean, I can just kind of go till January 1st and I'll be good.
Yeah.
And you stop working out, and you start eating more garbage, and for a lot of people, they'll drink more, and because that's the favorite pastime of a lot of people this time of year in the winter, because that's all there is to do. And so it's a tough time of year.
hmm Well, I can speak for myself. There's a part of me that kind of yes, we're distracted as people a lot of by a lot of stuff that's in the headlines, and then we do move on to the next thing or whatever that. But we also create the distraction, and I've done that in the past, and I'm really kind of cognizant of it and try to move away from it. And the distraction for me could be something like, well, my race wasn't what I assumed it or I hoped it would be, so now and I've done this before, and it's sort of like what I talk about, my band analogy, when it's really great and it's exciting to start a band, but it's actually hard work to, be in one.
Hmm.
Because you got to really work at it, and you got to make songs, and the stuff that it's like, oh man, well I just want to be on stage. Well, I'll say stuff like, yeah, it was a bad race, so now I'm getting on the podium at Chattanooga 70.3. I'll just sort of and I've fought the urge to, it's crossed my mind, and I've fought the urge many times to actually kind of put that out there, because I've done that before, and that's just sort of like a way for me to be like, all right, get back in the graces. Like, he's going for it again, or whatever.
Hmm.
And that's really, it's just, lip service. I just can't, I mean, it's almost like, show me, not tell me kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I think we've all gone through it. And it's easy to get swept up in, especially when it's just like a keystroke away to kind of like tell the world, and it's sort of a motivator too. But the reality is if you're not, really up for it, it just becomes another letdown in the long run, or another, you know what I mean? It's like you got to look in before you look out, and that's the kind of stuff I really think about in the off season, because it's like you said, man. There's just so many kind of lulls, and there's not that big exciting race sitting out there, and most people are done racing, and it's sort of like, what do you do when people aren't looking? I mean, that's always the key, right?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what happens. And I mean, and that's why this time of the year is so important. It's like, yeah, it's it's tough for people because you're on the trainer, or you're on the treadmill, or you're not doing these like, uh, workouts that seem allowable to Facebook, that will, all but guarantee 200 likes, with the hashtag crushed it. It's like you're doing the stuff that you're either in maintenance mode, you're doing weights, you're in the pool trying to keep your form, you're your stroke, you're on the bike doing short intervals trying to keep your threshold, you're doing a lot of runs that are slow, trying to build up volume, that way, which is all things that are great this time of year. And none of them are just that. It's like, but listen, like, it's a lot of it's just not that way in general. None of it's really fancy, and I think it's different for, well, I hope it's different for the athletes that I work with, because that's generally the mode of, or my method of operation in terms of prescribing workouts and training load. It's all about consistency. It's never about fancy, gigantic workouts, or it's not about testing. It's about consistency and trends, and then you just kind of wake up one day and you go out for a run, and you're like, holy crap, that was a PR. They're like, they come because of consistency. They don't become forced because you're taking a test.
Mm-hmm.
Like, perfect example, I talked about Summer, I think, on the last podcast, but I just I had another athlete today that did a half marathon, who is also doing the New York City Marathon in 2 weeks, and he PR'd his half marathon today without even trying, he said, and that was after posting a 2-hour run yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, but that's how it should be. It should be like, I went out today to just continue doing what I'm doing, and you can look at it as a PR if you want to, but what it's really telling you is your consistency and your determination to just do the small, the 30-minute easy runs, the 1 hour active recovery spins, the 2K easy in the pool, like all those things that add up that people skip because they aren't fancy, are the same. I call those the cement within the bricks. You can't build a house without the cement, and the bricks are what you see, but the cement's what holds them together. And a lot of times we just want to show the bricks. I won't even go into a Butch Bones tangent with the brick by brick thing, but
You're winning at life, man.
because that's true, man. Yeah, we're winning at life, and you're gonna win at life when you don't have a job. Yeah, but anyway, it's like,
With a
it's
$10 million buyout.
it's right, yeah, it's those small things, man, and those small things are need to be done, year round. They don't have to be structured, but you said it. Like, yeah, I think that's a lot of reason what you said about the Chattanooga 70.3 comment. is I had an athlete ask me about doing Ironman Texas in April that just got done Louisville, and I was like, I think that's a bad idea. And I think that race, especially when it's early season, it's April, but a lot of those races are what I call hold me over races. I'm going to sign up for it because I just need something to get me through the off season. Something to get me out of bed, something to wet my whistle, something to hashtag and post and like to get me excited. But the real development and the real success and the real improvement just comes with those every other week or those every month like surprise workouts that you do and you're like, oh, I've never been able to do this before, and it just dawns on you. But when you're so consistent, that's how it's supposed to happen, and that's how the off season, as people love to call it, should be as well.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. It's interesting to think about those early season races, and then, because it used to be sort of like, let's get it done and get it out of the way, and then we can have our summer or whatever. And it crossed my mind many times this year as we were waiting to do one of the last races of the season in Louisville. It's like, man, is this like, it's gonna be a good way in one way because we'll have a shorter off season. But I don't know. I think that it's maybe good having a late season. I think a lot of people sort of like get to the point where they're like, all right, already, let's get this thing over with. The later it is. But
Mhm.
can you imagine if we would, do Texas and then just be sort of like empty after that? I don't know. I mean, what?
Be just treading water,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, the temptation to do Louisville would probably be huge for one.
Yeah, it would be huge. Well, this person was asking to do both,
Uh huh.
and I had to put the kibosh on that just from a development standpoint. And I think people don't think, oh, well, if I want to do really well, then depending on what part of the country I live in, that's going to mean 4 hour, 4.5 hour trainer rides. So
Hmm.
no thanks.
For
But
me,
yeah,
it was like, can I just? For me, it was just last year was almost perfect for me when we did Wisconsin, and I did that sort of late 70.3. And in retrospect, I wish that 70.3 would have been about 2 to 3 weeks earlier, and I would have handled it the same way, like
hmm
jumping right on the tail of it and using those gains from a 70.3 race to really catapult and like build my energy and excitement for it.
yeah.
It was just about a little bit too short in between, but if I'd had maybe a couple more weeks, that might have been the perfect formula.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the burnout in the late season Ironman also has to do with how you train. When are you going to start focusing on that race with training? When are you going to start, ramping up the mileage? When are you going to start really dialing it in? And while it's different with every athlete, depending on how long they've been in the sport, and if it's their first, their fifth, or their 10th, it's like you don't, for the athletes that I work with, if they're doing October Ironman, like we're not even going to start Ironman training until like late July. We're doing August, September are our biggest months. We're not like starting it early. We're doing speed. We're doing 70.3s, Olympics, whatever, and then we'll take that and we'll turn our fast into far, which I think is what you should do. But and again, that takes it towards what's going to keep you mentally charged and focused. So for some people, it's half marathon. Some people, it's marathon. Some people, it's trail running. It's whatever. It's like whatever gets you to stay consistent and not, because a lot of people will also impulsively jump to just a totally different sport.
Hmm.
And so it's not like you're actually into triathlon. It's like you're just into what's relevant, whatever's trendy because of the season. You don't have to, just do 24 hours a day triathlon all the time, but you need to find balance. And that balance comes with doing it throughout the year, and you'll have run focus, bike focus, swim focus, throughout the course of the year, or at least you should, um, which is also helpful to the athlete as an individual. But it's giving everything up and just running, isn't the greatest idea. I mean, I did it and it was not great.
Hmm.
Or just giving up on their swim, not going to the pool is it's like you make all these gains in the pool, which are so hard for some people, and then you just throw it all away and start over again.
Hmm.
You know, and there's a way to maintain. You don't have to get incrementally faster over the winter, in the pool, but you need to maintain it because you don't want to you don't want to take 5 steps forward and then 4 steps back, and you're back to just a slightly faster.
Yeah.
And that's what so many athletes do. I mean, that's for me, my biggest. I was talking this with a buddy of mine the other day. One of my biggest goals in the off season is to improve on my swim. It was, yeah, is swimming my thing? Is it something that I'm good at? Sure. Is it something that, I think I've considered a fast swimmer? Sure. I would say probably, I am. I swam really well at Louisville. It didn't feel hard. It felt controlled. It felt easy. Um, and, I think I even beat some of the male pros out of the water. But was it my maximum ability? No. Swimming is my least favorite thing to train. And I hate saying that because I love coaching swimming. But for me, at least in the past, it's been like, oh, I know I can just go swim 1 day a week, or I can basically not swim from September to June or July, like I did this last year. Slowly build up, and then with a like a 2 or 3 week block, get it all back and swim what I did in Louisville. But in this discussion I had with another guy who's a coach as well, we're talking about energy systems, and we talk about this a lot too, is that, triathlon is one big domino. It's all about energy systems, because so many people are surprised when they get to a course like, oh, I just didn't have it on my bike. And they're so used to their bike mile an hour or their heart rate or their watts being the same. I'm like, yeah, well, you also didn't just swim 2.4 miles.
Right.
And, we talk about it all the time because I've had people like jokingly say to some of my athletes, yeah, I think he's having you swim too much. I'm like, yeah, anyway, keep on thinking that as we cruise on past you, not only in the swim, but distance ourselves in the bike, because, if I can swim faster and more comfortable, then I can also bike faster and more comfortable. And if I can do that, then guess what else I can do? Well, I can actually run faster and more comfortable. It all starts the minute your toe hits the water. And a lot of people, even myself sometimes, because, I say, oh, well, top whatever is, what it is. But next year, one of my goals is to not just be, not just swim with my talent, but also swim with hard work and consistency. Because, let's say if I did Louisville again and the conditions were the same, then I would want to swim under 50. But that would take my talent plus my hard work and dedication and using that talent, 2 or 3 days a week for the whole year. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to developing and taking on, because at the end of the day, let's say Chattanooga 70.3, if I can swim so much faster and better and still be calm, then I can also bike faster and hold it longer. And, so that's something that I'm looking forward to this off season.
You just mentioned earlier about the people that just want to bag everything for the run. It's funny because I've been thinking about bagging everything for the swim. And, again, it gets this sort of, I've always had this in my head. At least for me, it's a personal thing that, yeah, I swam okay. I'm middle of the pack probably, but, that it's that relaxation piece. And, if I could swim 5 minutes faster than I did at Louisville with about half the effort or whatever you want to call it, and certainly less anxiety, because I spend so much time in the water and before the race trying to calm my nerves so much that I spend the first half of the swim making sure that I'm settled.
Mm,
And you know what I mean? If I
yeah.
could just jump in the water and just feel that now, 2,000 meters ahead of when I usually do, and have that relaxation and have that, stamina all built up, everything kind of clicking, that to me goes so much. I mean, I just can't, like you were saying about the domino effect, I can't imagine how far that goes. I mean, you're swimming 2.5 miles, and it's not like that's walking in the park. You know what I mean? So you gotta. That's what I've been thinking, and of course, including leg strengthening stuff. I'm not gonna like totally tank on everything, but for me, it seems like it always comes back to that swimming that no one really wants to pay attention to, but I just really feel like it has such a, it's sort of like my equivalent to your swimming is probably closest is on the bike, right? And I know a lot of
Yeah.
people who are tense on the bike, which I am not. So I can do what you did in the swim almost on the bike usually. Kind of just play my background and play my talents or whatever. But same deal. I need to work that harder. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the domino, right? If you can't get those first two dominoes in order, I don't know how you're going to get the third one.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's I think everybody has that, that domino they overlook. And it is like swimming is. I know we talk about it a lot on this podcast, especially, but the swimming, domino is it's so. I'll just never understand why the first leg is the most neglected leg. Because you can't do as well on the third if you don't do well on the first. And especially a lot of the way people train with swimming, with using their whole body and all their legs, and they're gonna go in the water for 2 hours, or not 2 hours, like an hour and 10 or hour and 30, while using those legs, while using their core, while using their arms. Then they expect to get on the bike and just do the same thing they've been doing, and then they figure out, oh well, I just didn't have it, or it takes so much more energy and so much more effort to maintain the same that it just ends up, ruining their race. It's the same as.
That's a good point. The maintaining.
It is. It's just
That,
it's so
that you
hard.
think
Like,
you're used to.
yeah, exactly. And then it gets, you're like, oh man, this, like, holding 200, usually feels like a 5, but it's feeling like an 8 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, do I need to back it down? Do I need to take in more calories? And you're just pushing so hard and so hard and so hard and so hard, and you're like, gosh, I just, and that's like the, when people, like, religiously and addictively, like, pre-ride these courses, they're like, yeah, but I'm with the group, I should average about 20. I'm
Right.
like, okay, let's get a couple things straight. First off, conditions are different. Secondly, you're probably coming a little bit rested if you're doing it with the group, because you probably took an easy day before. C, you're with the group, so you're probably getting some draft. And then I'm going to guess you didn't do a 2.4-mile swim before that, after having gotten up at 4 o'clock and doing, like, the same nutritional, pre-race thing that you do, and then doing the same effort, with a continuous 2.4-mile swim, and then you went out and did it. And then they do this swim, and they get on the course, and they what they do is they try to maintain their singular, bike session speed, based on what they've done on the course, and they end up blowing up on the run. It happens all the time. I watch people do it. I mean, you can see in their Facebook posts and stuff, they like, this obviously you just married yourself to a speed, and neglected this thing called, the swim. It's 3 parts, and the nutrition is in the middle. But it's like, if you ignore the first domino, then it's gonna just start crumbling then. And if you can nail the first domino, nail the second domino, then the last one is going to take the longest to crumble. Because that's how I really describe the marathon to an athlete. Is you shouldn't marry yourself to a pace. You should marry yourself for the first, half marathon to an effort. So let's say you start out with the marathon and you think, okay, not looking at your watch or even looking at your watch, you think, and you look to yourself, all right, I can hold this. This, to me right now, this feels like a 5 or a 6. So the goal from then on out is to maintain that pace while you raise the effort. Mm-hmm. So let's say you go through the first half marathon and you're still at like a 6 or a 7 and you're holding a 10-minute pace. Well, 3 miles later you get to a 16, your legs are probably going to get stiff. The day's going to catch up with you. Well, guess what? Now holding that 10-minute pace is probably going to require a 7 or an 8. And then once you get to mile 20, then you've only got an hour left. And then at that point, that holding that 10-minute mile, well, that's going to take probably a 9 or a 10. But once you get to that point, you think, I can do anything for an hour. I can hold my hardest effort, my 10 in running, I can hold that for an hour. And the biggest mistake that athletes make in the marathon, and this starts all the way before they, like we said, their first toe goes in the water, is they don't give themselves a big enough buffer on that 1 to 10 scale. They start at like an 8. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I can nail this pace, and this is my training pace. And then all of a sudden, after 13 miles, you're like, okay, well, I got to hold this pace. So now I'm already at a 10, and you're at the half marathon point. Well, now you're screwed because you can't hold a 10 for a half marathon. So once you've gotten to a 10, there really isn't any throttling back to an 8 or a 9. In order to get back to like a 5 or a 6, guess what you got to do? You got to take a little walk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, is like so many people don't allow themselves this buffer when it comes to perceived effort, and that's I've whether you as an athlete do this every time, I think you do it frequently, is the more and more I'm having athletes detach themselves from equipment. It is vitally important in when it comes to analyzing, but it doesn't have to be a part of the actual experiment that you see. That's the thing, is like I think we lose sight of is that, and I mentioned this on I think a comment thread from Wes Keem, one of our athletes who went watchless in his half marathon and PR by like 10 minutes yesterday. And we were talking about the watch, and I said, yeah, I said the watch, the watch helps us interpret the story. It doesn't get to write it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that we do that so many times where we just look at our watch and think, I'm only capable of this, so I'm going to run to my watch's like 950 pace, instead of just running by feel and what you've got that day. And then at the end of the day, well, then we can see, then we can see how, what the data actually told us about your story that day. Instead of reading a script, we just kind of go with, a little impromptu and just kind of go with it. And I have athletes that I've just basically said, put your heart rate monitor in the box and don't even look at it for the rest of until January or February. Just go run, just go enjoy and see what happens. And every single person that I've had detach more has started to run faster. And I just think that's a really good lesson for anybody there that's listening that just stares at their watch or stares at the heart rate monitor, is especially this time of year, because you like running in the cold too.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think you were nuts before I moved to Kansas City and
Yeah.
started running in the cold there, and I love it. I love it more than anything. Is just detaching from that and just going, and feeling it. What does easy feel like? What's moderate feel like? Because and this goes back to what somebody talked about, when athletes ask me if I test a lot. No, I don't. Because testing is when you just weight so much importance on one single day to define the next 8 to 12 weeks. Versus a perfect example is if I told you, Mike, to go run it out on an easy day, and you went around the lab a few times, you went on to Shelby, and it was 70 degrees, and it was super, super windy, and you hadn't gotten much sleep, and you had some coffee, and you're super stressed. Well, your easy pace that day may be a 10-minute pace.
Mm-hmm.
2 days later, if you woke up and it was 50, and the wind wasn't that much of a factor, and you had gotten a ton of sleep and you had no stress, well, then your easy pace might be an 8:30. So which one's right? Which one's wrong? And that's why the biggest problem with testing is what if you picked one of those days to test, and then you made that and married yourself to a concrete number or analysis or a different zones in your heart rate or your power, when the reality is that we're different every day, and you have to be okay with that, because both those paces were right, because it was your easy for that day. And that also, I think, gives you a whole lot more satisfaction in your workouts, knowing that as long as you just listen to yourself, then you'd have a good workout versus forcing yourself to a number that you may just not be capable of that day.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, I'm kind of that way. I tend to be that way on the bike, and I go by speed a lot, and I try and hold a certain pace. And in my workouts, I kind of marry myself to testing different speeds and different weathers, and I try to get really in tune with the feeling of different
Hmm.
paces and different weather and things like that, and get to the point where I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do this or whatever. So I do that too much, and what's really dawned on me since the Louisville was that I was training quote unquote for an Ironman, but I really the training that I really did ended up being for an Iron 10K. I mean, I was very, very capable of doing what I did off the bike and then running probably a pretty hard 10K. But after that, I was screwed. So to your point
And
about like,
sign me up for that race. If you ever put one on as a race director, the Iron 10K, I think
yeah,
there'd be a lot of people who would join in on that one.
well, I mean, Ironman's trying to get more people on board. Maybe that's the answer. It's like I could do the swim, and well, no, people say they can't do the swim, but they could do the bike and run all the time. But
Yeah, you're like, sure you could.
maybe you could do the downstream swim and a 112-mile bike and then run a 10K. Yeah, but that seems kind of be and then that's a great scale you've got there, the effort scale, and it's certainly, seems as though I am at that 8 to 9 effort range every time I come around for that second loop, and it's just like holding on for dear life and putting myself through enormous amounts of pain just to hold an 11-minute pace on that second loop or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And it's just not fun. So I don't know.
Oof. Yeah,
If I
it's
knew I was
not.
trained for a 10K, I probably would have slowed down that first loop even more. It would definitely would have probably been a run walk.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it's kind of funny because I mentioned that last time about the girl that she was run walking and I was just like holding on for dear life and we were about even the whole way.
Mhm.
And in retrospect, I probably should have tried something like that. Once I realized that I was toast, there's, it's a long shot probably, but if you start walking a little bit and get that rhythm going, who knows what may happen.
Yeah.
It was probably worth the risk because I knew I wasn't going to pick up any speed the way I was running,
Yeah, I mean,
especially
and
if I was
that's one of
training for a
those.
10K.
Yeah, yeah, for the Iron 10K it is. And that's one of those thoughts that and like you said, like, oh well, it sounds good at the time. Oh, I'm going to podium at Chattanooga same thing, but then am I willing to do the work that would require?
Mm-hmm.
And and that's the same thing when I think when you make a goal or you speak it into existence. Well, now it's time to dissect what actually would go into it. I've used this analogy before when it comes to like, oh, I want to do this and I'm going to do this next year. I'm like, okay, well, I want to use a computer. But if you told me that I had to take it apart and put it back together again in order to be able to use it, I'd be totally screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing you should do with like a goal. Give it to yourself, take it all the way apart and think, okay, this is what this is going to require. Am I really not so much capable, but am I prepared to commit to what that's going to take? And if the answer is yes, then give it a whirl. If the answer is, I could probably do that, then the answer is already no. And so, your goal is to say, oh, I want to do this next year, and I want to do that. And it's, you know, it's not, I want to run this pace, I want to run 7:30 at an Ironman next year. Okay, well, you're going to have to do the work that's going to allow you to feel like a 7:30 through 13 miles is only going to feel like a 5 or a 6 on your RP scale.
Yeah.
Or are you willing to do the work that's going to take for that to happen? Because what that's going to happen is it's probably going to have to be like a 7:10, 7:15 regular run pace of just your quote unquote easy for that to happen, because you're obviously going to have already swam and already biked, and turned it into that. So it's like, yeah. So I mean, put your goal out there, speak it into existence, and then see what happens. And a lot of times, like that's where coaching comes into it. Because I have athletes. I thought about this the other day. I have athletes all the time. Do you think I can do this? Do you think I can do that? Do
Mm-hmm.
you think I'm capable of this? And I always say yes. Always. I think I've rarely ever said no, and that was because of like just straight up, you need to be safe. But in terms of like goals, do you think I can do this? And I'm like, yeah, I think you can. And a lot of the times it's with a new athlete, and I honestly have no idea. Literally, I have no clue if this person can do it or not. But you have to have this belief, both of you do, that we can both do it.
Hmm.
I have to believe so much that you can do it, and you have to believe in me so much that I can get you there. That together, that's the only way we get there. And I think it's that it is blind sometimes, especially at the beginning or after a few months. It's that blind faith or belief that's like, I'm just, and it's like I think they talk about this all the time, like when in professional sports, when a rookie goes out there, or in like the NCAA tournament, it's like a guy off the bench, and he's like, yeah, he just said he has no conscience because he's like he hasn't been in enough in these moments to even know this is a big moment, and you just kind of go with it. And I think that's what sometimes when you partner up with the coach or you have this goal and it's almost so far out there that you're not emotionally or mentally detached from it. You're just, let's just find out. And then you do everything in your power to just see what you're capable of versus I have to do this. And I think it's that mentality of I have to do this versus I think and I believe I can do this. And even though you're both not real sure, because sometimes I just have no idea what somebody's capable of. I
Hmm.
kind of do, but it's like we just have to blind think, I believe I can get you there as a coach no matter what. And when that athlete believes in me, that I believe if I do what you tell me to do no matter what, then I can also do it. Then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you cross the finish line, you look at each other and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe we did that. you know,
Yeah.
but it takes time and it takes months and it takes, hours and effort and the right perspective and I think that's what always comes back to is the right perspective, and you can't have that in racing until you have it in training.
Hmm. I wonder how many people are ultimately satisfied with their Ironman race. Um, do you have a maybe 50%? I don't know.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I know none of the athletes that I work with are ever satisfied
Right.
with their first question is, what do you think I can do next year? I'm
Well,
like,
yeah.
oh
Well,
shit.
and I think this is a great topic because I said that Iron 10K thing, but realistically, if I look back at what I did and am honest with my training and all that sort of thing and the efforts that I put in, I was probably trained up for a solid half. You know what I mean? Like I was consistently doing mileage above and beyond the 56 miles, but I was definitely not going into the mileage probably that it takes to hammer that bike and certainly not run mileage. And I talk about like that all the time because I can hold on and I can fight through it and I've proved that. But in reality, I mean, not I'm not talking about a podium 70.3. I'm talking about like a very solid race, for me, which would be right around 5 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, in reality, if I'm gonna look in the mirror on that one and say that's probably where I was this time, and to hope for something crazy to happen is just silly. So I guess the reality is if I go forward and I'm looking at a 70.3, for example, early season, to kind of keep this level of intensity and work on things like speed and what have you, but that's probably more realistic. That's why I asked how many people are satisfied. I mean, and does that come down to a lot of times, maybe putting in the mileage, but maybe without the efforts? And I don't know. There's all these. Are we being completely honest with ourselves? I think sometimes early for our first one, sure, yeah, you're proud of that, and I was. It was just amazing that I could finish, and certainly you feel good about it. But you're always going to say, yeah, what can I do? What can I do? And that all starts right now, really, don't you think?
Well, oh, absolutely. I mean, the as you were saying that, and I think about this all the time um, with a lot of people, is that your greatest competitor is your willingness to prepare.
Mm.
And a lot of people go into these races with what they think is preparation, without even looking at like the small things. I never ceases to amaze me when people get to like a race day and the questions like, oh, well, what? I'm like, have you not prepared both mentally and physically? But it's that, I mean, what's the best way to say it? It's like, um, it's the degree that you have to have in order to prepare throughout the year is I would say it's pretty high, but your ability to recognize that you this sounds so recovery. It's like recognizing that you have a problem, and then how long does it take you to actually put the work into fixing it, instead of just coming around to the same conversation you have after every. If you're having the same conversation with yourself every single off season, then you're just mediocre. Well, at least you're fine being mediocre, because you've ceased to, you have found the ability or the concentration or the motivation or the energy or the commitment to focus on what it would take to change the trajectory that you seemed so like desperately obsessed to repeat every single year. And I do think, to your previous question, I would say that probably 70 to 80% of people are okay with their time, because it's safe to be okay with your time. Because I am here to tell you, and any athlete who just did an Ironman and really, really like surprised themselves, doing better in the second one is going to be infinitely harder.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy. You're like, oh, I've got a whole year under my belt, but the energy, the motivation, the newness, the fitting it in one year, totally different, whole different ball game to the next year, and it's so hard. It's like maybe not sometimes athletically or time wise, but that first one is like catching lightning in a bottle. It takes a lot to get that same energy and the motivation to not skip the workouts, because you have this fear of not being an Ironman, or of not finishing, or of not doing this, and it's that fear that sometimes gets people to the finish line, not on race day, but during training. But then once you've got it, you're like, oh well, I got this. I'm an Ironman. I got this. I could totally do this. But it's to continually get better and not just be fine and okay with where you were. Like, the level of focus and determination, and a lot of times like doing the small things that just you don't even like want to do. Like, it could be bike position, it could be gear choices, it could be swimming more, all the things you don't want to do. But if you're really consumed with and have a real yearning for getting better, then the things you need to work on, won't matter. The only thing that matters is the end result, and that's getting better. And this is the time of year where people either commit to getting better, or a lot of times commit to complacency.
Absolutely. And I guess that's something we got to make the decision on our own, And
everybody does. Yep.
Yeah. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. We're pushing 48 minutes.
Sure. Pushing 48 minutes. Another
that's
podcast.
That's a good start for the off-season podcast.
Yeah.
Off-season. Maybe we should whittle these down like training. Like maybe do like 10, 15 minutes every episode.
Yeah, let's see how that goes over. Let us know what you think. Shorter episodes. Little maybe focused on different topics. Completely flip the shark.
Yeah, or we could, work on, like, we could disagree for 5 minutes on one podcast and release that, since that's something we need to work on.
Who said that?
Little things like that. I don't know. Nobody said that. I think people like it that we agree.
A couple of people, they want controversy. If you
want that, just go watch Fox News or CNN and you'll be cured. Big shout out again to everybody who has joined our closed Crushing Iron group page. We're like 550 now, which is insane. And a huge thank you to anybody and everybody who has taken the time to give us an iTunes review. We talked about this before. It doesn't do Mike and I any good because we don't do sponsors or anything like that. And so, but what it does do is it does give our podcast some inkling of credibility, because let's be honest, as soon as they listen to it, we're going to lose it. But what it does is when other athletes or triathletes or just people in general see our logo and our podcast available on iTunes, and it has something now like 75-star reviews, they at least want to give it a listen. And if you think if this podcast has in any way helped you at all, and you would like to see it also help other people as they search for triathlon podcasts or have just watched Kona and are thinking about, getting in this crazy journey and trying to get more information, then, please give us a review. It helps other people find us so we can help more people, which is what we're doing this for anyway. So again, help us find other people. And for those of you that are taking the time to do it, we very, very, very much appreciate it.
We do. I'm currently working, almost finished with the Ironman Louisville tribute video. It's going well. I'm getting used to editing to another cinematographer because usually I shoot everything. But this time CC volunteered to take the camera, and he did a great job. And I'm putting this all together now. I should have that posted maybe tomorrow today, which will be Monday on the release of this. But yeah, anybody else? I really enjoy. I've been thinking about getting out. How I like to do these things and getting out and do more races. So if you're like involved with the race or something like that, and you guys want to have a race video or something to kind of commemorate the thing or promote it in the next year or anything like that, let me know, and we can talk about that. I'm looking forward to the off season. Also, we've got a ton of people going down to Chattanooga 70.3. If you're anywhere near here or there and want to get on board, come on down and join us. I think we've got close to 40 people from the closed group going down there.
Oh, it's gotta be. Yeah, I mean, 15 of our not 15, 20 of our athletes alone that I coach are doing it, and then it's got to be 40. I think we're going to hit 50 like we had originally had set out to do. So yeah, but the more the merrier. Come on down and join us. Or up and join us, or across and join us. It would be awesome. And when the video for Louisville does come out, I mean, hope you guys share it with other people. I think it gets people jacked up, and we again, same as a podcast, we do this stuff, free and complimentary. But Mike spends a ton of time on these things, and I think if you've ever seen one of his tribute videos or just one of his videos in general, he does really, really, really awesome work. So, do what you can and share that with other people so they can, join in and hopefully get the same thing that you have gotten out of this, whatever it is, podcast, community, group, all the good stuff, and share the wealth.
Also, if you've decided like me and the off season is going to be swim focused, I highly encourage you to drop an email to Robbie, c26coach@gmail.com, and inquire, or go to it's my whole section. I used to be the marketing director, man.
Boy, of all the ones to give pub to, we're gonna edit that crap out.
Oh yeah, and that's gonna be beeped out. That's like I'm gonna have to make this.
Please do, and with like a giant expletive beep that one out.
Yeah. Anyway, go crushingiron.com and check out the swim analysis. I can't recommend it enough. I know hundreds of people over the years have been helped with swimming by your tutelage. And
yeah. Yeah. Email me at c26coach@gmail.com. It is a great time of year to, especially if you're only going to the pool, on a limited basis, is to make the most of it. Get a video, send it over to me. I got tons of info. There's plenty of information on our website at crushingiron.com. And then also, if I've had a lot of demand and a lot of people come to me for our maintenance program.
I thought you were going to say visors.
Q4? No, we got people working on that.
Our $100 visors are coming out soon.
$100 visors. Listen, man, if this demand, you meet the market in the demand, man, that's what we do. But if you're, I thought about this the other day, and I know we're getting long-winded here, but this is like the time of year that, these like Team Betty and Waddy Inc. and Team Everyman Jack and all these other teams, like they like make you apply to be on their team, and a lot of people don't make it. It's like
what?
And I don't get it. So if I was texting with this about Jamie Lopez the other day and Kate. And I was like, we are an all-inclusive team. We are an all-inclusive stable of athletes, getting close to 100. of all shapes and sizes, of all experience levels, of all abilities. Whether it's trying to do your first sprint in Olympic, which you have people like that, or whether it's the multiple athletes we have going for Kona slots or going to go back to Worlds next year. We have everybody in the beginning, everybody at the end, and everybody in between. But what sets our athletes apart, I think, is their personality and their willingness to help out and communicate and welcome others into our community. And so if you feel like that's something that you were missing or that you would like, or that you don't feel like you should have to apply for, then we'd love to have you. And you can email myself at c26coach@gmail.com, or you can email Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com.
Yes, sir. All right. Are we done?
Yeah, I know we do this all the time. I think we're done. We're done now. Done. We'll see you later. Bye.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your day, everybody, and thanks for tuning into the Crushing Iron podcast. Everything you can do to kind of push it out there would be great. I don't know. That's our marketing pitch.
I know. It seems to work for now, so we'll we'll work on it this off season. We'll work on our pitch.
We do have some pretty cool stuff in the hopper, bubbling.
We do,
but we're
a
not.
A lot of stuff on the stove. But we're not ready to pull them off.
You got to mention though that we do have some like our athletes that we coach get some pretty cool stuff from the. I mean, we're not like sponsored, but we have some things going right with.
We have great. We are supported by National Running Company, Power Meter City, Normatec, and Roca. And they have been generous, very generous, to offer incredible discounts to our athletes to support us and what we're trying to do. And so that's also a perk that the athletes get, and we're happy that they get to have that.
Yeah, crushingiron.com. We've got the coaching tab, and then there's pricing and everything like that. I think you'll find it very reasonable, plus all these other benefits and things like that. So check it out. All right, that's it. Let's wrap it.
All right, we're going this time.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone. See you later.
Yeah.